Hello, I'm Nikki, artist in residence at Mrs Smith's Cottage in Navenby, and I'm here to show you today how to make a lockdown patchwork cushion. So this is the little cushion that I've made using things that I didn't need to leave the house for. I know that things are changing day by day, but a lot of us are still needing to stay indoors for one reason or another, even just because it's raining and it's not very nice. So I'm going to show you how to do this. It's really simple. And hopefully once you've learned the art of making patchwork, there'll be nothing to stop you. So, first of all, you start by cutting out some templates for your fabric squares. We're going to use squares because it's easy. And I'm using a bit of old cereal packet, and I've made a square for my paper pieces, which are the templates, which is 5 centimetres square, and my fabric, which is 6.5 centimetres square. It really doesn't matter what size you make those. If you make larger ones, then your piece will be larger. I'm working on that basis to make a small cushion using 36 squares in total. So those are my paper pieces. There are some of my fabric ones. And what you do is you simply place a piece of fabric under a template, and then you fold it over and you baste it down. You do some tacking stitches to hold it in place. I shall show you how. So here is a paper template. These are all the ones that I used previously for my cushion. You can reuse them a number of times until they decide to fall apart. And then you need a needle and thread, a little knot on the end, and you just use your fingers and press down the fabric. And I tend to start on the inside, take a needle through, make a stitch near to the first corner on the inside, and then just fold the corner around to make a little mitre corner, because that just keeps the edges tucked away. No one's going to see them ever, so it really doesn't matter, but that just keeps as sharp a corner as you can manage. And just whiz round, listening to the radio in my case. It keeps my brain occupied. I saw a lady in a coffee shop doing this one day. It was really nice to see. She got a bundle of papers and some fabric, and she was sitting there. It was a lunch hour, so she was having a break, I think, from work, and she was meeting somebody for a bit of lunch, and she was sitting there doing some patchwork. You might call that addiction. Or just making the most of an opportunity for creativity. And I felt rubbish because I was just sitting there with a book and wasn't doing it. Oops. So I'm taking this right through to the end. Don't worry, you're not going to see me making a whole cushion in this video, but I just thought it'd be worth you seeing really how quick it is and how easy it is. It's really unsophisticated. Oops. Actually missing. Right, so that is that. Cut the thread off. So it's really that simple. I have a square ready to go. I have another square ready to go. So what I'm going to do is show you the next step. So imagine that you've got all of your squares and you've had a nice little play with them, and you've decided what design you'd like. So if you go back to my cushion, I was exploring the idea of dark and light, very simply, and moving from dark across to light using fabrics that I got mostly from old clothes. So an old decorative shirt, a skirt, another skirt, a top. So various fabrics of the same sort of weight so that they would hold together quite nicely. So starting again with my needle and thread, just quickly make another little knot there. So the way patchwork works is that you have your pieces and then you put them back to back, and then you just do a whip stitch along the edge. So you just have to go through like this. And so what you're doing is you're making sure that with each one you're going through the edge of the fabric making sure that you catch each little bit. Try not to do that. And you just go along like that. And it's really therapeutic, it's really straightforward. And you can just make them out along in strips and then put them together. Stitch and go around corners as you join them. But bit by bit, you start to join your fabric together, and then you're really starting to see something emerge. And the great thing about patchwork is that it's, it is relatively speedy, quicker than knitting. That's why I like it. And so, having done that, let's say that your cushion is 4 pieces big. There's a cushion, and this is the exciting bit, because now I'm going to cut away all of the basting stitches. So yes, all that hard work that you did in stitching the fabric together, you're now going to get rid of. So you get to take out all the papers, but what that's doing is giving you back your piece of fabric. I'm trying to do it too quickly. There we go. So bit by bit, you'll start to get your piece of fabric emerging, made up of different pieces of fabric that you've joined together. When you've done that, you need to find a piece of fabric to create the back, or if you feel very keen, of course, you can do 2 sets of patchwork, and then you join the 2 together. And it's the same approach of whip stitch, but this time you do it working over the top. So here's another one in the best Blue Peter tradition that I've done earlier. And so what I've done is I've taken the paper pieces out, I've then got a piece of backing fabric, and I've just pressed it down with my fingertips. No irons here. I mean, you can be fancy and get the iron on, but really I find I get away with it. And then you just apply the 2 things together and use whip stitch and go around the edge, working so front sides showing. And then finally you need to put some stuffing inside before you finish stitching up the last bit. So I'm using some old wadding from an old cushion that I've washed, and it all clumped together. So I've taken out the cushion pad, and I'm now reusing it to do projects basically. So it's just some synthetic wadding. You might have some old clothes that you can cut into small pieces, and again that will work perfectly well, or anything that you can find really. I was just thinking about dog fur, but maybe not dog fur. So moving on from that idea, I'll just finish up this little cushion, or begin finishing it up to show you what to do. I've lost my needle. So as you can see, I've got some wadding in there, and then you just finish up by doing the exact same stitch along the top. So it's really not about fancy stitching whatsoever. The fun is, and the creativity is really in terms of the fabrics that you use and the ways in which you use them, making use of how dark tones and light tones can play against each other. So you just carry on like that to the end, and then you have, in my case, a very small cushion. So that's how you make a lockdown patchwork cushion. There'll be a detailed worksheet on what to do, so that you don't need to keep looking at this video, uploaded on Mrs. Smith's Cottage website, and I would be really delighted if you had a go. Bye!